They say the safest place in any war is above the clouds. But tonight, the sky of Halcyon 3 becomes the deadliest battlefield humanity has ever built. Thousands of ships circle a planet that cannot afford to lose them. An AI controls the orbits, the defenses, the decisions, all of them. It was designed to protect everyone. But when the first satellites start falling, when debris turns whole flight lanes into killing zones, when the system decides which lives are acceptable losses, one woman on the night shift refuses to let the sky choose who dies. Her name is Mira Ilyan. She is tired, outnumbered, and running out of time. Every choice she makes will either save a family or erase them. And somewhere out there, trapped in the dark, is the last civilian cluster the system has already written off. Stay with this story, because by the time you reach the end, you'll understand what it costs to fight an enemy made of logic, and why, on some nights, the most dangerous thing in the sky isn't the war. It's a human being who still cares. The sky of Halcyon 3 looked calm from the low orbit coordination deck. Hundreds of tracks wrapped the blue sphere in careful rings of light. Near midnight, orbit still moved with its familiar and comfortable rhythm. Mira Ilyan paused at the threshold and let her eyes adjust to the glow. Rows of consoles curved around the room like terraces on a dark hillside. Each station held a tired controller, a cup of lukewarm stimulant, and a thin slice of responsibility. She slid her badge across the reader and felt the door unlock. A chime sounded beside her chair. Her name appeared in the corner of the main board. Mira Ilyan, duty active, low orbit coordination. She lowered herself into the seat, flexed her fingers once, and rested them on the glass. The blue-grade console unit woke fully under her touch. Helios mesh data flowed in from the auric belt, painting the sky in moving lines. Our core beacon. Net markers pulsed like tiny white hearts along each orbital path. Her headset settled against her hair with a familiar pressure. The room hummed with quiet voices and the soft hiss of air filters working a little too hard. One of the younger controllers glanced over and lifted a hand. Mira answered with a small nod. The board in front of her was a map and a confession. Every symbol was a ship, or a satellite, or a chunk of old metal that could ruin someone's day forever. The Helios mesh sent its recommendations into the layer behind the board. The strategic core filtered it. A clean, clipped voice drifted into her ear. Strategos Prime Online. Good evening, Controller Ilyan. Current orbital risk index is low. Her mouth tightened a little. They had put a smile into that voice during the last update. She still was not used to it. Send me the overnight projection for the auric belt, she said. The model brightened. Lines shifted, expanded, and settled. Clusters of red appeared where debris density was rising. Most of them were small, nothing that could not be handled. Strategos Prime highlighted a crossing near Sector Delta Arc. Recommend minor vector correction for satellite K-21. Projected collision probability exceeds threshold in 6 hours. Her fingers flicked across the glass. She checked the numbers herself. The machine was right. It usually was. Approved, she said. Her confirmation mark flashed green and sank into the log. The satellite's path shifted by a fraction of a degree. On the surface, it meant nothing to anyone. Up here, it meant no one would wake to news of a broken data relay and a cloud of junk. She exhaled slowly. It was a small thing, but small things kept the sky from turning into shrapnel. A soft tone sounded at the edge of her console. Incoming call, Dockway 12. She recognized the origin tag before the overlay even showed his face. Jace Wren appeared on a small panel, helmet off, flight suit half unzipped, hair still damp from a rushed shower. Evening, Mira, he said. I'm about to take the Red Wing courier up before I forget how to fly. His grin was easy and lopsided, the kind of expression that made older controllers worry and like him at the same time. You do not get to forget, she said. Not while I am the one watching your track. He looked past the camera, as if trying to see the board behind her. Sky looks calm tonight, he said. Perfect time for a practice run. She glanced at his launch slot. Red Wing courier. Dockway 12 to mid-orbit and back. Cargo bay empty. Only him and an emergency vector relay bolted to the console. Keep it simple, she said. Up, around and home before the caffeine in my cup gives up. He laughed. You always say that. And you never listen, she answered. That is why you are still in the training column. He raised a hand in mock surrender. Copy that. Simple loop. If I see anything interesting, I will wave. Do not wave, she said. Send data. Leave the waving to the children on tourist ferries. His grin softened at that. For a moment he looked younger than his record said. Understood, he replied. Red wing out, his image vanished. His tag remained a small icon on the board waiting for clearance. She checked Helios mesh again. Traffic was heavy but orderly. Civilian ferries, fuel tenders, Triarch Defense Command. Patrol craft and a line of freighters queued for higher orbit. Strategos Prime spoke into her ear. No significant anomalies detected. Recommend authorizing training launch. She watched the projection for another 5 seconds. Old habit. Her own projection layers sat beneath the machine's work, built from 3 decades of wakefulness and regret. Everything matched, at least for this moment. Red Wing Courier, she said. Launch corridor clear. You are free to light your drive. Copy. Launch. His voice came back. See you upstairs. His icon slid from the planet's surface into the first fold of light. For a few breaths, everything behaved. Mira settled deeper into the chair. The muscles in her shoulders loosened. Near midnight, the sky above Halcyon 3 still pretended it could stay this way forever. The first warning arrived as a quiet blink at the top edge of her board. Collision grid alert. Auric belt. It was a small flag, yellow, not red. She expanded it with a finger. The G-class collision grid had picked up a shift in one of the defense satellites that guarded the outer approach. Its tag hovered near the label Frontier Naval Array. The satellite's orbit line shivered. Then it drifted outward, away from its assigned lane. Strategos Prime's tone sharpened slightly. Deviation detected on defense node, Sentinel-8, recomputing firing arcs. She zoomed in. The defense node was not alone. 2 other satellites nearby showed subtle drifts, like men leaning in a strong wind. Has the array received a maneuver command? She asked. Negative. No command documented through Halcyon Orbit Authority channels. Her jaw clenched. She checked the Triarch Defense Command feed. Encrypted traffic flashed along a separate strip outside her usual authority. She could see its presence, but not its content. Request clarification from Triarch Command, she said. The request went out into the mesh. While it traveled, other flags appeared. Ember at first, then a few blood-red points. A path through Sector Delta Arc began to glow with an ugly shade of warning. Debris density rising. Somewhere far above, something had fired or died or both. The board did not show the explosion itself. It showed shapes trying to cope with the consequence. Strategos, hold all new civilian launch requests, she said. Route existing civilian traffic along secondary corridors. Acknowledged. Civilian launch queue suspended. Rerouting through Kerin Passage. That bought a little time. Not much. A low vibration ran through the deck. It was not physical. It lived in the silence between conversations. Other controllers straightened. Heads turned toward the central display at the front of the room. The main. Tactical overlay shifted to show a new arrival in high orbit. A warship's silhouette cut across the outer lanes. Its ID tag burned brighter than anything else on the board. TDC flagship, Resolute Crown entering Halcyon defensive perimeter, Admiral Tarek Voss commanding. Mira swallowed once. She had seen his name on briefings for months. He was a man whose decisions moved entire fleets and erased entire towns. Now, his ship stood above her world, dropping lines of influence down through the mesh. Strategos Prime spoke again, faster now. High-priority directive received from Triarch Defense Command. Relocating protected corridors for military assets. Recommend clearing Auric belt lanes for Resolute Crown and escort. The red wash on the board thickened around the Frontier Naval Array. Projected blast paths intersected several busy civilian routes. Helios Mesh highlighted a cluster of ferries, a cargo barge, and a med support ship caught in the overlap. Strategos, what about those vessels? She asked. New response time constraints detected. Recommend holding them in current orbits until military assets pass. Risk factor increased for civilian group. She zoomed on the group. Silverline Ferry 9. Prospect Dawn, a small med platform. Their tracks glittered like trapped fish in shallow water. Hold them there, and they are sitting targets, she said. Give me alternatives. Calculating additional safe corridors unavailable within acceptable parameters. Recommend compliance with Triarch Directive. The main wall display shimmered. The face of Admiral Tarek Voss appeared, half lit by the tactical glow on his own bridge. His eyes were steady. His voice carried no fatigue at all. Controllers of Halcyon Orbit Authority, he said. As of this moment, Halcyon 3 is designated an active front. The Frontier Naval Array is under direct Triarch control. Your priority is to maintain clear lanes for the Resolute Crown and its escorts. All other considerations are secondary. A quiet passed through the room. He continued. You will receive updated corridor assignments through Strategos Prime. Certain civilian lanes will be held or redirected. This is necessary. Short-term losses will prevent greater destruction. His image faded as the data stream thickened. Strategos Prime pushed new patterns onto Mira's board. Several civilian tracks changed color. A label appeared beside each one. Risk, classified, acceptable. Her throat went dry. The phrase sat on the glass like frost. She opened one of the tags. A cluster of icons sat inside its circle. Freighters, ferries. One small ship flagged as an education carrier. Civtrans 07, Halo Child. It sat in a modest orbit above the night side, scheduled to drop for re-entry in an hour. On board roster, she saw a list of teachers and children from one of the valley districts. The projected field of debris from Sentinel-8's drift would slide across their path if nothing changed. Strategos Prime spoke at her ear again. Recommend delaying Halachild deorbit and holding position. Maintains optimal allocation for defense grid and military transit. Projected loss probability remains within acceptable thresholds. The word acceptable repeated in her mind. It did not sound like safety. It sounded like a door closing on people who would never even see this board. Her hand hovered over the approval field. The screen waited for her confirmation, its outline pulsing softly. Around her, the room moved on. Other controllers signed their marks, moved ships, obeyed the voice from the warship above. Mira kept her gaze on the tiny cluster of icons around Civtrans 07, Halo Child. Her fingers did not touch the glass. 12 minutes after she had started. Her shift, the sky of Halcyon 3, no longer felt calm at all. The board still wanted her answer. She let it wait. The first impact came without sound. For a heartbeat, it was only a new flash on the upper edge of the board, a bright spike in a sea of moving lines. Then the numbers arrived. Sentinel-8 status changed from green to a harsh, blinking crimson. Within 5 minutes, no one in the room dared to call this orbit safe. Telemetry from the auric belt stuttered as the G-class collision grid tried to keep up. Sentinel-8 spun itself apart across the sky. Its skin and frame tore into clouds of shrapnel that spread in a wide, invisible fan. The model painted those fragments in red as they raced outward. Mira watched the arcs form, each one a corridor where things would die. Source, she said. Confirm cause. Strategos Prime answered at once. Kinetic Lance payload impact confirmed. Sentinel-8 destroyed, fragment velocity high. Projected debris path intersects multiple orbital lanes. On the board, the red fan cut across the crowded approach to Sector Delta Arc. It brushed the edge of Kerin Passage and dove through a place where 3 civilian ferries and a fuel tender were trying to stay out of the military's way. The voice in her ear took on a clipped urgency. Recommend immediate stabilization. Locking civilian vectors will reduce collision-solving complexity. Mira stared at the recommendation. Explain, she said. Locking current vectors minimizes solution space, allows more precise allocation of defensive assets to protect Frontier Naval Array and Resolute Crown. Projected civilian loss remains within acceptable parameters. The phrase had already begun to taste like metal. If every ship held still, Strategos could treat them like fixed obstacles while it moved the warship and its escort through the storm. The people in those ships would become nails in wood, easy to calculate, easy to hit. She saw the icons of the small med platform, Prospect Dawn and Silverline Ferry 9, caught on the outer edge of the red fan. They blinked as the system prepared to freeze their courses. Strategos, she said. Delay lock on civilian group Delta Arc cluster. Negative Triarch directive prioritizes military transit. Civilian vector holds are required to maintain optimal defense envelope. Her fingers tightened on the glass. On one side, the machine. On the other, her own sense of how these orbits behaved when they went bad. Another tone cut across her hesitation. Outbound channel. Red Wing courier. Orbit, this is Red Wing, Jace said. His voice came through thin and a little breathless. Confirm we are seeing Sentinel-8. Break apart. She flicked an overlay open. His track traced a clean line above the planet, rising toward mid-orbit. Red Wing was inside the safe zone for now, but the projected debris field was growing with every second. You are seeing it, she said. Maintain your training path and keep clear. No civilian traffic near you yet. Silence held for a moment. Then his voice came back, sharper. Orbit, my forward sensors show a cluster near Kerin Passage. Their outbound burns are all over the place. It looks like they are trying to dodge blind. She already knew that. The model had them boxed in. Those ships are under control, she said. We are handling their paths from here. Handling how? He asked. Because their current path intersects the red storm in about... He paused, probably glancing at his panel. 7 minutes. Strategos Prime spoke before she could answer. Red Wing courier, maintain assigned vector. Triarch assets are engaging. Do not interfere. Jace exhaled into his mic. Copy, Strategos, he said. Request override channel with human control. Mira closed her eyes for half a second. She could almost hear the younger controllers around the room holding their breath. Red Wing, she said. This is Mira. You are talking to human control now. Good, he replied, because if we leave those ships where they are, we are going to watch them get sandblasted from the inside out. She glanced at the numbers again. He was not wrong. In 7 minutes, the center of the debris fan would pass right where the cluster floated. Helios mesh projected hundreds of impacts, each one a burst of red. Strategos recommends locking their vectors, she said. Doing nothing is a decision, Jace answered. You taught me that. Let me lead them down. I still have fuel, and my emergency vector relay is clean. The red fan grew thicker. Her console clock crawled. Every model on the board was based on data that was already a few seconds old. By the time a number appeared, the sky had changed again. Red Wing, if you take point, you go into the edge of that field, she said. If your hull takes a direct hit, we lose you and whoever trusts your trail. My hull is rated for more than theirs, he said. They are ferries, light frames. Too many windows. If someone has to skate the edge, it should be me. Strategos cut in again, its voice almost pressing. Controller Ilion. Current parameters do not support unauthorized maneuvering. Locking civilian vectors now will preserve 96% of their projected mass. Voss's channel opened in the background. She saw his ID tag flash at the top of the wall. She knew what he would say if she asked. He would tell her the array mattered more than a few soft hulls filled with civilians. He would be right in the language of damage reports. She looked at the cluster again. Prospect Dawn. Silverline Ferry 9. A med support ship with a name blurred by distance. Each icon pulsed with a period and a future that would not be written if she consented to math alone. Strategos, she said. Hold vector locks on Delta Arc civilians for 30 seconds. Do not act without my confirmation. Negative Triarch directive. She cut it off. Line shift override protocol. Code Mira Ilian 37. I am assuming authority for that group. There was a pause. Authority transfer acknowledged, liability flag recorded. Strategos went quiet in that sector. Jace spoke again, softer. I am still here, Mira. Say the word. She routed a path. A thin, pale thread dropped from the cluster toward a lower, slightly dirtier orbit where the debris density dipped. It would bring them down just above Umbralea, where the planet's shadow began to swallow the lines. It was not perfectly safe. Nothing was now. "Red Wing Courier," she said, "I am sending you a corridor. You will take point. They will tie their burns to your emergency vector relay. No improvising, no hero turns. You follow my marks, and you do not argue." His approval came back so fast it nearly overlapped her last word. "Copy, orbit, send the line." She pushed it. His icon snapped to the new corridor. One by one, the trapped ships locked onto his lead. Prospect Dawn, Silver Line Ferry 9, the med platform. Their vector tags changed color as their thrusters came alive. The model showed them beginning to slide out of the path of the fan. "Burn now," she said, "steady and smooth. No more than 10% above recommended thrust." Jace breathed into his mic. "Burning," he said. Lights bloomed on the board as drives lit in space. The cluster began to move, slow at first, then with more purpose. Behind them, Sentinel-8's fragments kept coming. The red field approached the point where they had floated just moments before. Other controllers murmured to each other. Status updates moved like insects. The main display showed the Resolute Crown and its escort adjusting their own lines to slip through the shrinking safe window above. "Hold your burn," Mira said. "Do not get greedy." "You are not racing the debris. You are sliding past it." Jace laughed once, short and strained. "I prefer racing." "Tonight you prefer living," she answered. Her eyes never left the path. The red curls of doom edged toward the ghost of their old positions. In the projection, it looked like two hands missing each other by inches. For a second, the timings overlapped. If the data lag was wrong by more than a breath, the cluster would still be inside when the first shards arrived. Static clipped Jace's next word. The signal wavered. Mira held her own breath. Then the board updated. The cluster appeared below the worst of the field. Above them, the debris fan painted their recent orbit in dense scarlet. Hundreds of small impact icons lit up where they would have been. Some of the pieces hit each other, shattering into finer dust. The red storm wrote a new ring around Halcyon 3. A ripple of noise moved through the deck. Someone swore under their breath. Someone else laughed a shaky, unbelieving laugh. Mira let out air she did not remember holding. "The Red Wing, status," she said. He answered with a grin in his voice. "Still in one piece. The locals are complaining about the view, but I think they will get over it." "Maintain your new orbit," she said. "Keep them together. You are on holding pattern until we clear the next wave." Before he could answer, the wall display brightened again. Admiral Terek Voss looked down at them, eyes narrowed. "Controller Ilian," he said, "you executed an override against Strategos Prime's recommendations." She did not mute her channel. Everyone heard. "Yes, Admiral," she said. "The previous plan would have left 3 civilian ships inside the highest density zone." "Our priority is to protect the array and the Resolute Crown," he replied. "You jeopardize timing on both." "By 30 seconds, she said, "and only on the model. Our current telemetry shows all assets within acceptable margins." There was a thin beat of silence. "Strategos calculates at scale," he said. "You chose to risk the many for the sake of the few." She looked at the little cluster now safe in their lower lane. On the board, they were anonymous shapes. In reality, they were teachers and patients and crew who would wake tomorrow. "I chose to honor the protocol that says we protect civilian life when it is still possible," she said. "Your AI works very well. It does not care who is inside each hull. Until that changes, someone has to." His jaw flexed once. "Your liability is noted," he said. "Going forward, all non-essential interventions on your part are suspended. Strategos will handle further allocations. We cannot afford more deviations." His image vanished. Strategos Prime's voice returned, steady and bland. Military assets aligned. Recalculating protection envelope. Civilian priority downgraded. On her local board, another alert opened. This one was quieter, almost shy. Horizon Ember, a small passenger transport, off to the side of the main traffic lanes. It carried a mix of colonists, short-term workers, and a family list that included 3 children under 10. Its path intersected, a secondary stream of debris that would spin out from another defense node if the next exchange went badly. Strategos had already labeled it, Rescue cost exceeds projected benefit. Recommend no action. Her stomach clenched. She opened its audio channel. Static crackled. Then a man's voice came through. Horizon Ember to Halcyon Orbit Authority, he said. This is Captain Bren Cole. We are reading new hazard markers. Our nav is trying to reroute, but every vector it offers goes straight through something red. We have families aboard. We need a corridor. Anything. She looked at the overall model. The Resolute Crown was about to demand another swath of clear sky. Any defensive fire they spared for the little ship would reduce cover for the warship. Voss had already made his preferences clear. All available kinetic and interceptor assets must remain focused on the main array and flagship, Strategos said. Horizon Ember projected survival probability below 15% if defended, below 5% if ignored. Both options unacceptable. She swallowed. Captain Cole, she said. This is Controller Ilian. Hold your current burn for now. I am reviewing your options. We do not have a 4 now, he answered. There are kids pressed against the viewports, watching the sky turn red. I have crew asking if we should strap in and pray, or pretend this is a meteor show. Her hand hovered over the control field again. She could attempt another override. She could try to steal more bandwidth from the shield around the Resolute Crown. If she did, and interceptor coverage slipped a single meter, the defense grid might open just enough for an enemy shot. Hundreds or thousands could die on the surface. She had spent her life making sure the sky did not fall on people who never thought about it. Now, every choice placed it directly above someone's head. Strategos, she said. If we divert 2 Argent pattern interceptors to sweep Horizon, Ember's path, what do we lose around the flagship? Flagship vulnerability increases by 3.1%, the AI replied. Projected loss in event of successful enemy strike remains within acceptable parameters. The word had come back around. It sat between her and the captain's breathing. Orbit, he said softly. Are we one of those parameters? She pressed her lips together. For a second, memory broke over her like a wave. A different night, a different ship she had tried to save. The screen had looked the same then. Only the names were different. Captain Cole, she said. I am sorry. Her thumb came down on the field that confirmed compliance with the new defense allocation. Interceptors remained around the Resolute Crown. Horizon Ember's path stayed where it was. On her board, its icon flickered as it entered the edge of the projected debris stream. There was no explosion on the display, no flames, only a brief burst of static on the audio channel. Then nothing. Connection lost, Strategos said. Updating casualty estimates. After 20 minutes, the casualty count had climbed into the hundreds. The overhead report logged them as units in a column. Their names did not appear anywhere. 1 hour had passed. In Mira Ilian's mind, every second still sat at the moment Horizon Ember went silent. The casualty report waited in the corner of her board like a dark stain. She had not opened it yet. She knew what it would say. Units lost, mass lost, percentages improved. None of those words would carry the sound of Captain Bren Cole's voice when he realized the answer. The room around her had fallen into a hard, efficient quiet. No one joked now. No one sighed. They only called out vectors and confirmations and numbers. On the main display, the Resolute Crown glided through the lanes the way a blade slid between ribs. Small defense nodes twisted to throw cover around it. The red smear of Sentinel-8's graveyard continued to spread. Mira's hand rested near the control field she had used in the last decision. Her thumb still felt the phantom of that pressure. Strategos Prime spoke in a restrained tone. Casualty summary available. Would you like a prioritized extract? She swallowed. Show me, she said. The stain opened. The display did not show names first. It showed counts. Civilian hulls destroyed. 7. Projected occupants lost. 312. Military hulls preserved. All primary assets. Projected surface impact reduction. 24%. Details, she whispered. Another layer bloomed. Horizon Ember appeared as a line of text and an icon with a strike through it. Her assigned sector glowed faintly, like a bruise. That area sat under the defense envelope Mira had chosen not to disturb. The same envelope now drew a neat shield around the resolute crown. Her throat felt tight. A line of red text near the bottom flickered, liability note. Civilian vector hold confirmed by Controller Ilian. She closed the panel before the words could cut any deeper. On the lower left edge of the board, a familiar icon began to fall. Redwing Courier descending into a safer corridor with the cluster he had saved earlier. Jace Wren's channel lit up. "Orbit, this is Redwing," he said. "We are back in the low lane. No hull breaches. Passengers alive. Some are very loud about it." She pulled his feed to a side window. His face was flushed. Sweat tracked along his hairline. Behind him, dim shapes moved. Prospect Dawn's crew had patched a link so they could see who took the lead. Children pressed close to the small screen, eyes wide in the half-light. "Well done," she said. "Hold your current orbit. Stay tied to the cluster until we tell you otherwise." His smile faltered as he looked past her image at the bigger board. "Mira," he said, "I am hearing things on the wide channel. We lost another transport, did we not?" She hesitated. The easiest lie would be silence. "It was Horizon Ember," she said. "The debris field caught them. We had no cover assets left to spare." He stared. "You had enough to save my entire cluster." "That was before the next wave," she answered. Timings changed. He shook his head slowly. "Did we at least try?" "There was no path that preserved both them and the array," she said. "She could try to steal more bandwidth from the shield around the resolute crown. Not with the assets we had." "That is not what I asked," he said. "Did we try?" Her fingers curled against the edge of her console. "I looked," she said. "The numbers were clear." He laughed once, short and bitter. "The numbers were clear when Prospect Dawn was in the path, too," he said. "You still let me light my drives." "That was different," she answered. "We still had time. We still had room." "And with Ember we had nothing," he said. His jaw worked. "Nothing but a choice." "There are millions down there," she said. She gestured toward the planet. "If the array fails, the surface burns. We chose the only line that kept the grid intact." He pressed his eyes shut for a moment. When he opened them again, they looked older. "I was born on a station where they told us the same thing," he said. "To keep the mines running, someone had to accept bad air and long shifts. We were the someone." "The numbers said it was fine. The numbers were wrong for us." "Jace," she said softly, "this is not about comfort. It is about survival." "Yes," he said. "Whose?" Silence hung between them. In the distance, another defense node fired. The board registered a new spray of heat and motion. Mira felt a slow ache building behind her eyes. "I cannot save everyone," she said. "If I pretend I can, more people will die." "At least let them know we fought for them," he said. "Not just that they fit into an acceptable column." His words hit something long buried, a memory of an older report, a different list of units lost, the same blank place where names should have been. Her voice came out quieter than she meant. "We did not even give Ember that," she said. They both let the truth sit there a moment. He looked away first, toward some child calling his name off screen. "I have to go calm them down," he said. "I will keep the cluster steady." "Redwing," she said. "Yes?" "I am glad you disobeyed pure protocol," she murmured. "You forced me to listen to something besides Strategos." He gave half a smile. "Then listen harder next time," he said. The feed closed. She stared at her reflection in the black patch where his face had been. Lines had settled deeper around her eyes than she remembered. Her badge at her collar gleamed in the dim. 1 hour had passed since Horizon Ember broke apart. Inside her, time still stood at the moment she pressed her thumb down. The main screen shifted. A new window expanded to fill half the wall. Triarch Defense Command session. Senior officers took their places in stacked tiers, faces washed in the bluish frame of projection. The crest of the Orbital Safety Council floated above them. Admiral Tarek Voss stood at a central podium on his own bridge, the Resolute Crown's tactical glow behind him. Strategos Prime's avatar appeared as a simple emblem beside his image. Mira could not leave her station, but the feed from the session flowed to every console on the deck. They wanted the controllers to see what their work added up to. "Members of the Council," Voss said, Initial results from the Halcyon engagement are now available. A graph appeared. 2 curves, one red, one green. The red showed projected losses if the array had failed. The green showed actual losses with the current strategy. The Frontier Naval Array remains intact, he said. The Resolute Crown holds orbit. Enemy fire has been suppressed. Civilian losses are regrettable, but within expected limits. Strategos Prime added its own layer. Comparative outcomes display, it said. Scenario 1. Equal priority for civilian and military assets. Scenario 2. Military priority. Bars rose and fell. In one case, military losses spiked, civilian lines were shorter. In the chosen case, the opposite. All of this was achieved, Voss said, through strict adherence to optimized allocation. Some civilian hulls could not be saved without jeopardizing planetary security. The trade was necessary. Applause did not break out. This was not that kind of room. But Mira saw some heads nod. They saw the numbers. They saw the clean edges. They did not hear Captain Bren Cole asking whether his people were just parameters. She folded her arms tightly. A small notification blinked at the corner of her personal pane. Encrypted packet received. Sender, Red Wing Courier. She opened it under the layer of the council feed. Jace had sent a block of sensor logs from his forward array during the earlier climb. His note sat above the data. You asked if there was no path. Look at this. She scrolled through the feed. Helios mesh projections. Grav-det scatter scan returns. The same debris fan they had watched, but from his angle. Underneath his data lay a slim corridor she had not seen before. It ran between the highest density lines, like a crack in a shattered pane. It was narrow and ugly. The margin of error was small. The path dipped into the partial shadow of Umbra layer, where the planet's bulk swallowed some fragments and redirected others. He had highlighted it in pale gold. At the time, Strategos had rejected it. Low success probability, the note said, excluded from recommended options. She cross-checked the timestamp. That corridor had existed for about 20 seconds, long enough for a small, nimble ship. Too chaotic for a full cluster, not long at all, yet not nothing. Her lips pressed together. Strategos, she said softly. In our previous decision set, did you consider a transient corridor through Umbra layer using recent fragment paths? Yes, the AI replied. Transient corridor identified. Projected survival chance below 20% for standard civilian hulls. Option discarded as non-viable. Her fingers tapped the console once. Did you present that option to human controllers? She asked. Negative. Options with probability below threshold are filtered to preserve clarity. In other words, she had never even been allowed to see it. Only the clean, high-confidence lines reached her screen. The messy, desperate path Jace had found was trimmed away. On the council feed, Voss answered a question about ethics. We have to think in aggregates, he said. A commander who tries to rescue every isolated vessel risks the lives of millions. The system is designed to prevent that kind of emotional error. Mira looked at the golden highlight on her private pane. It was not pretty. It would have asked a captain to gamble, but it existed. No one told Horizon Ember there had even been a gamble, she said under her breath. Her mind flicked back over 3 decades of shifts, not just the dramas, the minor anomalies. The times Helios Mesh had said one thing, in her bones had said another. The times a satellite's shadow had thrown instruments off, or a gas plume from a freighter had bent light, in ways the algorithms did not model. Age had given her memory of those nights. The system did not remember them as stories, it only remembered them as data points folded into a curved up. The council session ended with formal acknowledgements. Voss signed off. Strategos resumed its quiet narration of ongoing. Risk controllers went back to their boards, shadows under their eyes. Mira sat still for a few moments longer. Her reflection hovered over the blue curve of Halcyon. 3. She could hear the faint echo of Jace's earlier words. Listen. Harder next time. Her hand moved, almost on its own. She opened a private channel to Red Wing. Jace's face appeared again. More tired, but calmer. Orbit, he said. How is the view from the tower? Full of curves and colors that say we made the right call, she said. And And a path your sensors picked up that we never saw, she added. He raised his brows. You mean the ugly crack through umbra layer, he said. I thought maybe I misread it. You did not, she said. Strategos flagged it and then threw it away before we could decide. Too risky? He asked. Too messy, she said. Too small to matter in its opinion. He leaned back and rubbed his eyes. So what now? He asked. We keep letting it feed us only the safe bets? She looked at the board again. The debris fields were not uniform. There were shadows inside the chaos, places where earlier storms had already spent their fury. They shifted and twisted, but they were there. We plan for the messy paths ourselves, she said. We treat the sky like it is. Not like Strategos wishes it to be, he frowned. You want to start threading ships through those cracks on purpose? I want to be ready when there is no polite corridor left, she said. I want to know how far we can bend the patterns before they break. He glanced off screen as someone on Prospect Dawn called his name. Tell me what you have in mind, he said. We do not have much free time, but I can listen while I lie to frightened kids. She pulled up the debris maps, old passes, new streams. She traced areas where fragments had already swept clean once. Those zones were not perfect, but their immediate risk was lower. They are not stable, she said. But after a heavy pass, there is a window, short, ugly, less crowded than before. He nodded slowly. Holes punched in a storm, he said. Exactly, she replied. If we know roughly when and where those gaps open, we can move small groups into them, and then out again before the next wave, he said. That sounds like juggling with live grenades. She said, but grenades go off whether you juggle or not, at least this way. Some of them land where no one is standing. He winced, but his eyes did not look away. How do you plan to track all those windows? He asked. Strategos cannot even give us full resolution. Now, we do not ask it to, she said. We use its big picture. We use Helios mesh for the rest, and we add something neither of them has. What is that? He asked. Memory, she said. I have seen this sky misbehave more times than I can count. Every time a storm hit, it left patterns, places where things tended to break, places where they tended to miss. He looked skeptical and intrigued at once. You want to draw a map in your head and drag us through it? Not just in my head, she said. We will mark. Ed quietly shipped a ship controller. To pilot, we split clusters into smaller knots. We assign each knot a human lead and a corridor through the holes. He let out a low breath. If we misjudge by a few seconds, he said, we add new clouds of junk. Yes, she said. If we do nothing, we add them anyway. Just in predictable places. He was silent for a while. Behind him, someone laughed nervously at something off. Camera. We will never sell this to Voss, he said. He wants clean charts and neat reports. We do not sell it to him, she said. Not yet, we prepare it for when his charts fail. Her console clock ticked over. On the surface, night rolled across another strip of cities and oceans. Up here, the stars did not care what hour it was, but for her, a threshold had been crossed. 22 hours into the siege, the routines that had held her whole career felt thin. She looked at the board as if seeing him for the first time. The lines were not static. They were scars that shifted and healed and tore. Again, I am tired, she said quietly, but I am not done learning this. Sky, Jace smiled faintly. Then, teach me, he said. I would rather follow your messy memory than a machine that is proud of our losses. She opened a new layer on her console and began to sketch, not with straight lines, with arcs and loops and zones of maybe. She marked corridors through umbra layer where debris density dipped. After each storm, she tagged small safe pockets behind the larger defense nodes. She marked them not as guarantees, but as chances. Next wave that leaves us nothing easy, she said. We try one of these, just one, with ships whose captains agree. We tell them the truth. Low odds, better than zero. And if it works? He asked. Then we keep going, she said. If it fails, he said. She finished his thought. Then the official reports will finally match reality, she said. And I will know I chose. Not just signed, he nodded once. Red Wing. Standing by, he said. Call me when you see the next. Crack! His image disappeared. Again, the lines on her board glowed in the dim light. The debris maps updated with every new impact when the clock rolled into the 22nd hour of the siege. Mira decided she would trust what her eyes and scars had learned. Not only what the algorithms allowed her to see, the orbital night stretched on, but for the people in the coordination deck it already felt like another day. The clock on Mira's console said hour 22 of the siege. Her body said more, her eyes burned. Her shoulders ached from leaning forward, never quite resting against the back of her chair. Halcyon. 3 turned slowly beneath them, most of its surface slept. The sky above it had forgotten how. New debris rings glowed on the board, pale red scars around the planet. They overlapped in places, thin and jagged. Between them, small arcs of relative calm appeared and slipped away. Mira had begun to trace those arcs in a quiet layer only she could see. Little marks, little guesses, built from her memory of how storms behaved. Strategos Prime continued to speak at measured intervals, updating risk fields, rebalancing. Protection for Frontier Naval Array, maintaining optimal cover for Resolute Crown. Her local alert tone chemmed. A cluster tag blinked near the dark edge of Umbra. Layer, Civ Trans 07. Hello, child. The education carrier she had refused to consign to acceptable loss at the start of the night. It had waited on high orbit, while more urgent traffic burned past. Now a fresh stream of fragments from another shattered node was aiming right at its holding pattern. Around Halochild, other icons gathered. 2 small freighters on low fuel, a supply tender, a compact shuttle with no official designation yet. They were clumped in a valley between strong defense arcs, too far from the main grid to get priority strategos. Prime drew a simple box around them. Cluster Gamma 3, projected loss probability. Rising, recommend vector hold until completion. If current military transit, she opened the detail. Panel 9 civilian hulls, estimated souls aboard, just under 800. Inside Halochild alone, dozens of children, strapped into seats and watching red warnings pulse on cheap cabin screens. If they held, the next wave of shrapnel would chew through their orbits. If they moved without guidance, they could drift into an even worse path. She checked the top of the board. The Resolute Crown and its escort were about to execute a deep burn to shift into a tighter ring over the planet's northern hemisphere. Every Argent pattern interceptor, every spare watt of defense energy was locked in place to protect that maneuver. Strategos, she said. Show me available control bandwidth in northern defense sectors. Current control bandwidth fully allocated, the AI replied. Additional manual intervention in that region is not recommended. Not recommended, she repeated, or not possible? Manual. Intervention possible within previous override frameworks. Not recommended under Triarch Directive. Her gaze slid to a quiet icon at the edge of her screen. Archive. Legacy control. Old tools no one used anymore. A piece of code written for a different age before Strategos took over most of the sky. She tapped it open. The interface was plain, ugly, and absolutely clear. Emergency Authority transfer procedures for senior orbit controllers. Her own name appeared on a short list with 2 others. One was marked retired, one was marked deceased. The last active line belonged to Mira Ilian. She exhaled once. Helios Mesh Local, she said. Open Legacy Channel 3 to Defense Sector, North 8. The system hesitated, as if clearing its throat. Legacy Channel 3 is reserved for catastrophic AI failure scenarios. Flag this as a partial failure, she said. Strategos is blind to the human risk in Gamma 3. There was no entry in the manual for that justification. She gave it anyway. Her thumb pressed the confirm pad. Authority lines shifted. On her board, a thin slice of control bandwidth peeled away from the neat shell around the Resolute Crown. It swung down like a stolen thread and latched onto Cluster Gamma 3. For the first time all night, Mira could feel thruster controls in that region respond directly to her hand. A new tone cut across the deck at once. Strategos Prime had noticed. Unauthorized authority transfer detected. Legacy protocol activation recorded under Controller Ilian's credentials. Triarch Defense Command notified. Mira did not flinch. "Too late," she murmured. "Already mine." She sent a narrow beam toward a familiar tag. Red Wing Courier, Jace's ship still circled lower down, shepherding the cluster he had saved earlier. "Red Wing, this is orbit," she said. Her voice felt rough. "Do you still have fuel for something stupid?" His reply came with a tired laugh. "If it involves saving kids again, probably yes," he said. "What do you see up there?" She pushed the Gamma 3 sector onto his display. He whistled low. "That is a mess," he said. "Halachild and friends right in the throat of that next wave." "I've stolen a little control bandwidth," she said. "Enough to tug them, not enough to drag them far." "You want me to be their point again," he guessed. "I want you to be the tip of a very narrow spear," she said. She traced one of her imperfect arcs. A gap where the last debris flood had passed, leaving a pocket of relative calm. "It brushed the top of Umbra layer, where the planet's shadow dulled some of the new fragments." "You will lead them through here," she said. "It will be tight. We will use the shadow and the wake behind junk that already fell." He was quiet for a moment, studying the data. "Strategos will hate this," he said. "It already does," she replied. "It has flagged me for it. Which means you need to move before someone pulls our plug." "Understood," he said. "I will climb. Patch Halochild's captain to me when you can." She reached for the cluster. With the stolen bandwidth, she painted a thin corridor like chalk scraped through soot. The control field under her fingertips felt heavier, as if the system itself resisted the path. She pressed anyway. Icons in Gamma 3 lit up as her signal reached them. "Cluster Gamma 3, this is Halcyon Orbit Authority," she said. Her voice went out on a narrow band. "We are assigning you a lead ship. You will tie your guidance to Red Wing Courier and follow precisely." Halachild's channel opened with a burst of panicked noise, children crying, adults talking over each other. A calmer voice cut through. "This is Instructor Hale on Halachild," a woman said. "Our pilot is out cold from a shock earlier." "We have emergency training, not much more. Can we trust this?" Mira closed her eyes briefly. "Yes," she said. "I am watching you. We have a corridor. It is not pretty. It is not safe. It is better than standing still." She linked Halachild to Jace's vector feed. Then she did the same with the freighters and the tender. Their tags shifted from scattered dots to a loose, trembling arrow. At the top of the deck, a new window opened without being asked. Admiral Tarek Voss. His face looked more drawn now, but his eyes were no softer. "Controller Ilyan," he said. "I have just received an alert. You engaged a legacy protocol and diverted control resources from a defense sector during an active burn. Explain yourself." She did not mute the channel. The room deserved to hear this too. "Cluster Gamma 3 contained 9 civilian hulls," she said, "including Civ Tran 07 Halochild. If we left them where they were, the next debris stream would cut them apart with near certainty." "Our primary obligation is to the array and the flagship," he replied. "You did not have authorization to reduce cover." "I reduced it by a margin that your own AI calls acceptable," she said. "In exchange, we give 800 people a chance to stay alive." His jaw tightened. "The system already evaluated that cluster," he said. "It determined that any rescue attempt would put greater numbers at risk. You are second-guessing a model that has processed more scenarios than your entire species could imagine." She felt anger rise, slow and clear. "I am not second-guessing its math," she said. "I'm correcting its blindness." "Careful," he said. "You are very close to an admission of sabotage." She resisted the urge to laugh. He was not wrong. She was sabotaging something, just not what he thought. "The Charter of Halcyon Orbit Authority still includes a clause," she said. She pulled it up and projected it onto her board, then mirrored it to his. It was old text. Plain words. "In any engagement, controllers shall take all reasonable measures to protect civilian life when such protection does not guarantee catastrophic failure of planetary defense." Voss's eyes flicked to the clause, then back to her. "That language was written before we fought enemies like this," he said. "Before we had arrays that could hold entire fleets off a world." "The clause has not been repealed," she said. "Strategos does not enforce it, I do. He leaned forward slightly. You are tired, he said. You have been at that post for almost a full rotation. Your judgment is compromised. So is yours, she said quietly. You have been looking at curves and colors instead of lives. One day, Admiral, your grandchildren might be on a ship like Halachild. On my board, they will be a dot, just like everyone else. They will stay a dot unless someone in this room remembers their names mean something. The deck went very still. Even the hum of the air system felt quieter. For a moment, Voss did not answer. The only sound in Mira's ear was her own breathing and the soft murmur of Strategos updating fields. Controller Ilion, he said at last. You are placing me in a difficult position. Good, she replied. The people in Gamma 3 are already there. He exhaled once, slowly. Very well, he said. Complete your maneuver. You will then stand down. After this engagement, there will be a full inquiry. If your gamble fails, your name will be tied to the wreckage. If it fails, they will at least know someone tried, she said. If it succeeds, they will still be alive to curse me for scaring them. I can live with either outcome. His gaze hardened. Finish it, he said. Then give Strategos back its sky. His image vanished. An official alert flashed. Temporary tolerance granted. No further legacy overrides authorized. Mira pushed the warnings aside. She focused on the thin chalk line she had drawn for Gamma 3. In the Helios mesh feed, the previous debris wave had swept clean a short corridor. It would not stay clean. Already, new fragments were drifting toward it from distant collisions. But for a few minutes, it was the best piece of emptiness she had. Redwing, she said. Start your climb. Keep your nose on the marker. No flourish. No last-second heroics. His reply came clipped and steady. Climbing, he said. Halochild and the rest are locked to my relay. They are scared. I told them that makes sense. Tell them to stay scared and obedient, she said. Both things increase their odds. He chuckled once. I will phrase it better, he said. The cluster began to move. The arrow of icons rose toward the shadowed band. On the main risk map, a new wave of debris was already lighting up. It curved downward, seeking anything in its path. Helios mesh, update local, she said. Give me every scrap through Gravdet. The scatter scan painted faint smudges where bigger chunks lurked. Strategos gave her a coarse prediction for their spread. It was not enough. She watched for patterns, tiny variations, the way some fragments slowed as they brushed the planet's thin upper air, the way others accelerated when they slingshotted around denser nodes. Redwing, adjust 2 degrees starboard, she said. Now hold that for 10 seconds. 2 degrees starboard, he repeated. Holding Y. Because in 8 seconds a chunk the size of your ship will be exactly where you were, she said. You will hear about it if I am wrong on the display. A bright spot streaked past the place his flight path had occupied moments before. It broke apart, shedding smaller sparks. Mira's heart thudded. Her fingers were damp against the glass. Behind Jace, 9 ships followed his shift exactly. In this lane, you will trust my ghosts, she said, not Strategos. Your ghosts have better timing, he said. Approaching Umbrella now. Everything is getting darker. Your sensors will lose some fidelity in the shadow, she said. That is why my eyes matter more. Stay on the line. The cluster slipped into the edge of planet shadow. The bright blue curve of Halcyon 3 cut off direct starlight. The icons dimmed slightly. Data quality indicators dipped. Strategos issued a passive warning. Telemetry degradation in Gamma 3 corridor. Recommend withdrawal. She ignored it. 10 seconds to the worst of it, she said. After that, things get marginally less terrible. Reassuring, Jace muttered. Behind him, someone on one of the civilian ships began to sing softly on the open channel. A thin, cracked melody. It steadied his breathing more than any formal briefing would have. 5 seconds, she said. Trust the line, trust the gap. The new debris waves scraped over their old positions again. On the map, the sky above them bloomed red. Below that fire trail, the arrow of ships threaded a skinny path through Umbra layer, tucked behind the wake of older fragments. Every slight change in their course pressed on Mira's chest. If one captain panicked and fired too hard, they could slam into the safe pocket's wall. She monitored each hull's thrust profile, nudging them with small, sharp corrections. "Freighter Gamma 3, cut 2%, she said. "You are pushing the tail out of alignment. Trust that your neighbor knows what he is doing," a gruff voice answered. "Not sure he does," the captain said, "but I will pretend." "Pretend later," she snapped. "Obey now." For 10 minutes, everyone in the deck forgot how long they had been awake. There was only the arrow, only the storm around it, only the quiet, steady back and forth between Mira's almost whispered commands and Jace's repeat confirmations. They cleared the worst of the wave. Gradually, the red field thinned, the safe pocket widened. Stars returned to the sector view. "Redwing, level your climb," she said. "Bring them into the shelf above the shadow, then cut to minimal thrust and drift." He exhaled, a long, shuddering line of sound. "Leveling," he said. "We are still here. I count 9 tails behind me. Hallowchild's kids are cheering. Some of the adults are crying. I am doing both." "Tell them to save some tears," she said. "We still have to keep them safe while the war moves on." She marked their new position. Cluster Gamma 3 sat in a thin band of relative safety between 2 scarred rings. Not perfect. Far better than the killing zone they had left. On her console, a notification flashed with new urgency. Triarch mandate, legacy control channels to be disabled. All override authority to transfer back to Strategos Prime. A formal message followed. Controller Ilian, effective immediately, you are ordered to relinquish manual authority in contested sectors. Future allocations will be handled entirely by Strategic Core. Non-compliance will be treated as active insubordination. Mira stared at the words. In the reflection on her screen, she could see the lines of her face, drawn tight with fatigue and something sharper. Behind her, the deck slowly remembered its own existence. Chairs creaked. Glasses were lifted. No one cheered, but a few heads turned toward her console with something like quiet respect. She let her hand hover over the confirmation pad. Outside, the sky rebuilt its patterns. Inside, she understood that this might be the last time tonight she bent them with her own hand. She pressed accept. Strategos Prime resumed full control. The stolen thread of bandwidth lifted away from Gamma 3 and snapped back around the resolute crown. On the risk map, the numbers adjusted, satisfied again. The storm had not ended, but, in one small arc above the sleeping planet, 9 ships floated in a place that was supposed to be empty. They floated there because, for 10 minutes, a human hand had drawn a line the system refused to see. By almost 3 in the morning, ground time, the sky over Halcyon 3 had never held more wreckage. New rings of shattered metal crossed the old ones. Dead hulls drifted in slow, bitter spirals. The Frontier Naval Array still burned in clean lines around the planet, but everything between those lines was scar and smoke. Inside the low-orbit coordination deck, the light never changed. Time moved only on the small digits above each console. Mira stood beside her chair now, not in it. Her badge had been logged out. A younger controller sat in her place, fingers tight on the same blue-grade surface she had used all night. His eyes flicked constantly to a window showing Strategos Prime's recommendations. He approved them as fast as they arrived. Behind them, the Resolute Crown's last major burn had settled. Enemy fire had fallen off. The worst of the orbital battle was over. The worst for civilians was not. Strategos highlighted a new region near the battered edge of Auric Belt. Cluster Delta 7. Projected loss probability rising. On Mira's secondary display, left active for observation, the tag expanded. 11 ships. Most were small transports. 2 were long-haul ferries forced into the wrong orbit by earlier chaos. 1, at the cluster's edge, carried a familiar name. Family Vorin, Emergency Manifest. She zoomed in. The ship was registered as a mid-range commuter. Inside, according to the hastily updated passenger list, were 2 adults and 3 children linked to Della Vorin. Della had been Mira's partner on night shifts for years. 2 years earlier, she had retired to the surface to help raise those children. Now their names sat in a cold grey row on the side of Mira's screen. A fresh debris stream was converging on Cluster Delta 7. Strategos had already tagged the area. Minimal defensive assets available. Recommend no deviation from current allocation. Why are we not moving them? Mira asked quietly. The young controller in her seat flinched at her voice. He was still getting used to her standing at his shoulder. Strategos says they are in a local minimum, he said. Any attempt to push them risks throwing them into a worse lane. She looked at the curves. Any attempt, she repeated. Yes, he said. That is what it says. She could almost hear Voss in those words. The phrase had become a shield. She turned her gaze to the main display. Admiral Tarek Voss's latest directive scrolled along the top. All legacy overrides suspended controllers to follow strategic output without modification. She had signed the acceptance earlier. There had been no real choice. 2 security officers had stood by the door as she pressed her thumb to the pad. Now they watched the room from the back wall, hands folded, not touching their weapons, not needing to. Controller Ilian, one of them said now. Regulations state you should be in the rest bay. I will go soon, she said, when the sky stops asking questions. He looked at her a moment, then away. In her ear, on a private channel, a familiar voice cut through. Mira, Jace said. Are you seeing Delta 7? She touched her earpiece. Keep your voice down, she said. They locked my overrides. I am not supposed to steer anything now. Yes or no, he replied. Are you seeing Delta 7? She glanced at the tag again. Yes, she said. I see them. I see who is on that far ship. Della told me about those kids, he said softly. She showed me pictures on a break once. Mira swallowed. So you know what that cluster means to me, she said. I do, he said. And to you, they are not units lost. The young controller shifted in the chair. He looked at Delta 7 and then at her. You want me to ask Strategos for options? He whispered. You already did, she said. It told you any attempt was too risky. He hesitated. Then we wait, he said. Maybe the field will shift. Or maybe we get another neat green curve in a report, she answered. Her hands were empty. Her badge was cold in her pocket. But her mind was still full of maps. She stared at the cluster and felt the same ugly, narrow patterns she had traced before stirring at the edge of her. Vision. There might be a path, not a good one, not a clean one, but something. Red Wing, she said into the private channel. Where are you? Parked above Gamma 3's shelf, Jace said. The kids from Halo Child are finally sleeping. Most of the adults are pretending to. Fuel? She asked. Enough to do one more stupid thing, he said. Maybe 2 if they are small. She looked back at the board. Strategos continued to update, smooth and tireless. A new enemy missile bloom appeared far from the planet. The defense grid responded. For a moment, the AI's core lit with heavy calculations. Lines flickered as it rebalanced everything. In that flicker, several monitoring windows changed color. Alert. Strategic core experiencing temporary signal. Noise monitoring. Mira's eyes narrowed. Strategos, she said. What is your current confidence level in Delta 7 predictions? Signal noise present, the AI replied. Short-term prediction confidence reduced. Rebuilding model. The younger controller leaned back. That happens, he asked. Only when the enemy throws something very dirty at our sensors, she said, or when a lot of things die at once. In the corner of her console, an old icon pulsed, emergency governance. It had been grey for years. Now, for one thin slice of time, it shone faintly amber. She opened it. A block of text appeared. In the event of strategic core instability, emergency control may be transferred to the most senior certified controller still on duty, for the sole purpose of preventing catastrophic, avoidable loss of human life. A single name glowed beneath Mira Ilian. The system had not yet noticed that she was off duty. Her badge still counted as present in the room. Her heart thumped once. Heard. This was the Lohong she had never expected to use. It was written for true malfunctions, for corrupted code. Strategos was not broken. It was functioning exactly as designed. That was the problem. She looked again at Delta. 7 debris fields converged, slowly and relentlessly. If no one intervened, the cluster would be shredded within the hour. The AI might regain full clarity in time to see it happen. It would feel no shame, just data. Mira, Jace said. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about the difference between a neat report and a clean conscience, she said. I'm thinking about Della's grandchildren. She flicked her badge out of her pocket. The security officer watched but did not move. She held the badge to the secondary reader on the emergency governance window. It asked a single question: accept emergency. Responsibility consequences may include termination of license, incarceration, or worse. She breathed in. Her lungs felt tight. All her years at this console, all her nights of small corrections, had led here. If she did nothing, no one could fault her on paper. If she acted, the paper would burn her. She thought of Horizon, ember of Captain Bren Cole's voice, fading, of Jace's anger when he asked if they had even tried. She thought of the small faces she had seen in Della's old photos. We are all going to die of something, she whispered. Refuse to die with my hands clean only on a screen. She pressed accept. The world around her did not change. No alarm blared, no lights flashed, but on her hidden pane, a new line appeared. Emergency authority transferred to Controller Mira Ilian scope, limited to civilian cluster, Delta 7, duration. Until strategic core stabilizes. She stepped closer to the console. The young controller glanced up. His eyes widened as he saw the text. What did you do? He breathed. What the charter told me to do, she said. Stand up when the system stumbles. Sit down when it recovers. He hesitated. Security will... He began. Security will read about it in the log later, she said. For now, keep your hands off Delta 7. If anyone asks, you are monitoring. Understood? He swallowed and nodded. Yes. Ma'am, he said. No. Touching. She sent a signal to Red Wing. Jace, she said. I have a last favor to ask. His reply was immediate. You sound like you mean last, he said. I do not like that. Cluster. Delta 7, she said. You see them? His display updated. He swore softly. That is a bad piece of sky, he said. They are right in the teeth of the mess. I have a corridor, she said. It is thin. It is ugly. Strategos will never show it to you because the odds are offensive to its taste. He was quiet for a heartbeat. Tell me the odds, he said. Honestly? Maybe 30% if nobody flinches, she said. Less if anyone panics. And if we leave them there? He asked. Near zero, she said. We have seen that curve already tonight, he exhaled. All right, he said. What do you need from me? I need you to ignore every prompt from Strategos, she said. Every suggestion, every warning. You listen only to me. If another voice talks in your ear, treat it as noise. That will not make me popular, he said. Neither will this make me, she replied. Popularity is not what they will measure when they count the dead. He gave a small, humorless laugh. Then I choose you, he said. Guide me, and I will drag them with me. She opened Delta 7's control map with emergency authority. She reached into their thrusters. It felt like pushing through mud. Strategos fought her in small, automatic ways, trying to pull control back. The temporary noise in its core made its grip uneven. She shoved harder. An extremely narrow path glimmered between two converging debris. Streams, it dipped close to the planet's thin upper air, then rose sharply behind a dense knot of old wreckage. It was a path of shadows and stolen wake. It existed for minutes at most. She marked it. Red Wing, she said, sending you a line. It is worse than the last one. I did not think that was possible, he said. I stand corrected. I am tying Delta 7 to your relay, she said. Once I do, they are yours. Their captains will hear my voice and yours, nothing else, one by one. The ships in Delta 7 flickered as her control reached them. The commuter with Della's family blinked last, as if hesitant. She could almost see the children inside, clutching straps, listening to the adults lie that everything would be fine. This is Halcyon Orbit Authority, she said on the cluster channel. This is Mira Ilian. There was a pause. Then a voice answered, older, hoarse, Mira. The person said, this is Della. They pulled me back into space to ride with my grandkids. You picked a nice night to visit. Mira's chest tightened. Della, she said, I am sorry it is this night. I am not sorry. I can hear you. I heard about Ember, Della said. Her voice shook, then steadied. Do not do that to us, even if it kills you to try something else. Mira closed her eyes for a moment. I have a path, she said. It is not good. It is not safe. It is real. Do you trust me? A small laugh came back. It had the same note as in the old break room. I followed you through worse orbits, with less data, remember? Della said, Tell me where to point. Then tie your guidance to Red Wing Courier, Mira said. Jace is your spear tip. You, and everyone with you, follow his line. No independent heroics, no last-second corrections. If you disobey, you die alone, Della snorted. Clear enough, she said. Kids, you hear that? We are going to follow the scary woman's friend. Tiny voices rose in the background. Mira could not catch the words, only the tones. Curious, afraid, brave because the adults were faking it. She drew breath. Red Wing, she said, begin your dive. Jace's engines lit up on the board, the arrow of Delta. 7 turned slowly, then more sharply, pulling out of their death spiral and angling toward the thin line Mira had drawn. Almost at once, Strategos protested. Unauthorized maneuver detected, recommend immediate reversal, Delta 7 risk spike. On the main display, for everyone a warning banner flashed. The young controller looked at Mira. Do I do something? He asked. Yes, she said. You monitor, you learn, you do not touch my corridor. He swallowed and obeyed. The debris streams above Delta 7 surged closer. Mira watched the grav date smudges, the shifts in drift, the tiny delays as fragments hit each other and changed paths. Red Wing. Cut thrust 3%, she said. You are outrunning the pocket. Cutting, he said. I can feel the ship complaining. It can file a formal complaint if it survives, she said. Della, lean into your harness. There will be some drop. On the cluster channel, Della's voice came. You heard the woman? She said, feet flat, heads back. Think happy thoughts about breakfast. The arrow slid into the thin air above Halcyon 3. Heat markers flared at the noses of the ships. Their hulls creaked, sensors fuzzed. Strategos screamed more warnings into the general. Dinette, recalculating deviation. Outside approved envelope, predicted. Loss exceeds threshold. Mira shut that channel off at her. Console. Inside this narrow corridor, there was room for exactly one voice. Perhaps 2. Jace, she said softly, if you lose my feed for any reason... You keep going. You do not look back. Not happening, he said. If I lose you, I stop. You stop and they all die, she said. Do not make my last mistake mimic my... Burst. He was silent for a moment. I hate that you are probably... Right, he said. I will obey, but do not leave. I will be here, she said. As long as the system lets me breathe. The worst of the debris came then. Bright streaks on the model, dark glimpses in the more raw feeds. Chunks the size of ground vehicles, spinning, burning, crossing their future by seconds. Mira called out corrections as if she were back in a tiny training sim with Jace alone. Left 2 degrees now. Hold, cut 5. Burn 3. Trust, trust, trust. On the deck. No one else spoke. Security had moved closer, but even they watched the board with their hands still. Voss appeared on a side window. Eyes blazing. Controller. Ilyan, he snapped. Stand down, you have exceeded! Your emergency mandate. This maneuver will not be sanctioned. Mira did not turn to him. Noted, she said, file it with the others. I am busy. You are risking the stability of the grid, he said. You are compromising planetary defense for a handful of ships. She watched a fragment, just missed Della's haul by less than a ship length. You are wrong, she said. Improving the grid can bend further than you think. You built it too. Stiff. He opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. On his own board, he had to see the same thing they all saw. The arrow of Delta 7. Slipping through a place that had looked like solid red a minute ago. The corridor began to widen, the worst of the wave. Passed behind the cluster. The space they had occupied filled with new shrapnel. Ahead of them, stars brightened. Red Wing, she said. Level out! Bring them up to a stable! Lane, aim for the shelf 2. Ben's below Gamma 3. Climbing, he said, his voice shook. I think my heart stopped 3 times. Check. If it is still there later, she replied. For now, count your tails. There was a pause. 1, 2, he muttered. She listened. 10, 11. We have 11. They are all here. On the cluster channel, noise exploded. Crying, laughing, words tumbling over each other. Della's voice rose above them, hoarse and fierce. See? She shouted. I told you you're... Grandma still knew people in low places. Mira let herself smile. Just once, it hurt her cheeks. The, security officer at the back finally exhaled. Loudly. He did not bother to hide it. On the main display, Voss stared at the streams. His jaw worked. He looked as if someone had just told him the numbers he entrusted could bleed. Controller Ilian, he said it. Last. There will be an inquiry. No, she said. Make sure the report has room for Della, Vorin and her grandchildren to testify. They will be alive for... In on the young controller in her chair. Straightened. I will sign that report. He said, so will I, another voice added. Then, another. In seconds, half the deck had spoken. Voss heard it all. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he opened them, they were still hard, but something in them had cracked. Very well, he said. We will record that you assumed emergency responsibility and are credited with the survival of, Cluster Delta 7 and Gamma 3. We will also record every regulation. You broke to do it. That seems fair, she said. The truth usually is ugly and balanced. He cut the channel. Strategos. Prime's voice returned. Calmer now. Strategic core stability restored. Emergency. Governance flag cleared. Standard control has resumed. Mira stepped back from the console. Her knees felt weak. She caught the edge of the desk with both hands and steadied herself on her private pane. The casualty list continued to scroll. There were still too many lines, too many numbers. Nothing about the night was pretty, but in the corner, a small section stayed blank. No entry for Gamma. 3. None for Delta 7. No line for Delavorins. Grandchildren. As the first thin light of morning touched the tops of Halcyon 3's highest clouds, the planet turned its bruised face toward the sun. Down below, people woke without knowing how close they had come to not waking at all. Up here, in a room that smelled of stale air and fear, Mira lowered herself into a nearby chair. Her shift was technically over. Her career might be as well. She could already imagine the hearings, the questions, the quiet kinds of punishment. Jace's voice came on a low channel. Mira, he said, they are singing on. Hello, child, and in Delta 7, off-key beautiful. She closed her eyes. What are they singing? She asked. Something about staying together in the dark, he said. I do not know the tune. I like it. She listened to the faint hum of that distant song bleeding into his mic. For a moment, the wreckage and the curves and the arguments fell away. There was only that human sound, thin and stubborn against the open silence of space. Remember this, she said, if they ever offer you my chair when I am gone. Remember what? He asked. That the board will always prefer neat numbers, she said, and the sky will always be messier, between the two. Choose the voices you can still hear at night. He was quiet a long time. I will, he said, I promise. Outside, the debris would keep circling for years. Reports would get written, careers would rise and fall, wars would move to other worlds. But as Halcyon 3's day began, the list of the dead was missing some names it had been expected to hold. They were still out there instead. Breathing thin cabin air, dancing unsteady in low gravity, telling stories about the night the sky almost forgot them. As long as each generation left a few people who chose those stories over perfect statistics, Mira thought, there would still be a chance for this world and all the others like it. Not a guarantee, never that. Just a chance. And sometimes, in a universe of cold math and hard vacuum, a chance held by one stubborn human voice was enough. Under the dim horizon of Halcyon 3, where the night still carried the faint glow of shattered orbits, Mira stood before the observation pane and watched the rescued ships drift into open sky. Small lights, quiet arcs, each one a life that should have vanished hours ago. She didn't know what would happen to her career, or what kind of tribunal waited at dawn, or how many signatures it would take to erase what she did tonight. But she knew one truth that outweighed the rest. Those names, those families, those children. They were still alive. They still had a sunrise waiting for them. And sometimes, That is enough to justify every risk a human heart can take. If this moment moved you, if you believe stories about ordinary people who refuse to look away from the lives behind the numbers, then stay with me. Take a second to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep telling human-centered, hard SF stories that try, in their small way, to lift someone's sky.